Linda, come here a minute. I want to show you something.
What is it, Tom?
A lion.
A lion? What on earth? Oh, Tom, I thought you meant it was alive.
Oh, no, it's not alive. Unfortunately. Wouldn't it be fun to have a real live lion cub around the place?
Maybe, but it wouldn't be a small cub for long. Living things have a habit of growing, remember?
True. Good old Sam here. That's what I call him, Sam. He'll never grow any bigger.
That's because he's not alive. I can just imagine trying to cope with a living, growing lion around here.
Cubs may be small, but they grow very soon. And as they get bigger, they take up more room. A cub keeps on growing. Of that, there's no doubt. Till lion needs more space. And Tom is pushed out.
Do you really think there'd be enough room for a living thing the size of a lion in here?
Maybe not. Living things do grow, don't they? Now, if we could just find a cute little lion cub that would always stay small.
And stay still. Don't forget that living things move, Tom. Can't you imagine this place with a lion? Even a baby lion moving around in it?
When a big lion moves, it needs lots of space. And for running and jumping, a room's not the place. If a lion keeps on prowling and jumping like that, furniture's jumbled, and Tom is knocked flat.
It's obvious that a beautiful wild thing like a lion shouldn't be kept caged up in a small space.
That's true. But maybe we could find a very tame, fully grown lion that would just like to sit still all day.
No such luck, and even if we did, there's still another problem.
What's that?
Well, living things need to take in certain things to support life. Air, water, food. Can you imagine how much food we'd need to feed a lion?
When a lion gets hungry, it wants lots to eat. A lion's not content with just one plate of meat. When a lion's really hungry, you feed it, no doubt. It even gets Tom's share. Well, Tom goes without.
Big animals eat a lot. Even big dogs eat a lot. That's why it's not always such a good idea to have a large pet. At least good old Sam here won't eat anything. He won't go through any life processes.
No, he won't move, he won't grow, and he won't take in anything like air, water, and food because he's not alive.
I guess that makes him easy to look after. But something that's alive is a lot more interesting. Just think of all the living things there are and all the different ways they carry on those life processes we've been talking about. For a start, just think of all the different ways that animals can move. Animals move around. In the air and on the water. And under the water as well. Animals move on the land. And in other places too. Some animals move well in the air. They can fly. They can hover. Or soar. Some animals move well in water. They can swim. They can float. They can dive. Some animals move on land. They move different ways. They go different places. But all animals move. Animals can take in certain things that they need. By breathing, drinking, taking in food. Some foods make us thirsty, but then we can drink. These animals play in the water, but they come to the surface to take in fresh air. You can see by the bubbles that the animals are breathing. You can see the animal's breath here on a cold winter day. You might see your breath when the atmosphere is cold. Animals living in cages or pens must be given their food every day. But animals living out in the wild find their own food in their own way. Animals can be parents and reproduce their kind. And the baby animals grow. They grow up to be like their parents. Animals are growing all the time. Living things can grow and reproduce their kind. Some living things move in different ways, and they all take in what they need. Well, we don't need to worry about feeding Sam since he's not alive. We still need to find a place to put him. Maybe we could stick him in here.
Oh, no, you don't. He wouldn't be right in there at all. Even lions that aren't alive don't look good underwater. Besides, he'd squash these plants, and they're just starting to grow.
Are those plants alive? Oh, I thought they were plastic.
No, they're alive. If you watch them for a few weeks, you'd see them grow, as long as no one puts anything heavy on top of them.
Is that all you're going to have in there, plants?
No, I'm going to put some fish in here soon, but I wanted to make sure the plants were growing properly first.
I think it's really neat the way those plants can grow underwater like that. Most of these other plants out here would probably die if we put them in there.
Plants can grow in a lot of different places. Underwater, in the desert, on rocks.
Well, here's one that won't grow anywhere.
Why? What's wrong with it?
It's not alive. It's plastic.
Well, of course it won't grow, or reproduce, or take in anything. It won't go through any life processes because it's not alive.
A plant that is alive will undergo the same life processes as an animal, but in different ways. Living things grow. Living plants can grow. Some grow wide, some grow tall. Living plants grow. Even ones that look small. Living things can reproduce their own kind. Some plants produce seeds from which new plants can grow. This mountainside looks bare because a lot of trees have been cut from it. It'll have to be replanted with new seed. The seeds are in the pine cones, So the people gather the pine cones when the seed is ready. They take the pine cones to a seeder. The pine cones are poured into a tumbler. The tumbler separates the seeds from the pine cones. The seeds are ready to be planted. When the seeds grow to be seedlings, they're planted carefully in the earth. And the seedlings grow and grow and keep on growing. Until they're pine trees again to fill the forest and keep it green. A living plant can have roots to take in the water it needs. Roots help plants develop to be flowers, trees, or weeds. Some living plants move. They may curl up at a touch, like this sensitive plant whose leaves fold and droop if you touch them. Some plants can move while they're taking in what they need, like the Venus flytrap. It's sticky inside to attract flies and insects, and once they're inside, it closes up tight. Sometimes it's hard to tell which of these plants is alive just by looking at them. But if we put them both in the garden, we'd soon find that this one would grow because it's alive, and this one wouldn't grow because it's not alive.
But it's not very hard to tell which of these is alive. This little fellow who wandered over from next door is carrying on several life processes right now. He's breathing, he's certainly moving, and he's growing. Even though we can't see it, by this time next week, he'll be a little bit bigger than he is today. And a while ago, he was trying to do a bit of taking in what he needs with my finger. It's not hard to tell that old Sam here isn't alive, but this little fellow, well, it's alive.
Broadcasting.
Anybody home?
Hi, Xiaoming.
Hi, Xiaoming.
I brought the puppies over to show you.
Oh, aren't they cute?
They're still pretty small, aren't they?
Yes, but they're growing.
Yeah, I suppose in a month or so they'll be almost as big as their mother.
Perhaps they're not very big, but usually at this age they're very active.
Well, I hope they don't get too active. As long as they stay in the basket, they're okay. But if they get out here and start rolling around, they're going to squash all these plants just as they're starting to grow.
Are there plants in there?
Well, yeah, at least there's seeds in this one. It'll be a while before they're grown enough to come up through the soil. But you know, if you could see down through the earth, you'd see how seeds develop underground. In this speeded up series of pictures, we can see how the plant puts down roots to take in what it needs from the soil. When the roots are well grown, the plant can send up shoots through the earth into the air. Here we can see how wheat grows. Of course, the photography is speeded up, but we can see how, once the roots are established, the shoots begin to develop. And they continue to grow until they become tall wheat stalks.
I guess I better keep these little guys away from your seeds while they're growing.
Might be just as well. They're so cute. What a pity they have to grow up.
I think it's funny how people say that, as if there were something wrong with growing up.
Which there isn't, of course. Growing is natural and right. But sometimes little things aren't especially nice.
Well, every age has its own good things. I mean, it's nice to be young like Sha Meng here, and I kind of like being the age I am. But there was a boy once that had to learn about that from his grandmother. He didn't think growing up was a good idea at all.
Little Clou-Clou wiggled his toes in the dust. I don't want to grow up, he said. It is fun to be little. I want to stay young forever. Everybody must grow, his grandmother told him. Every living thing on this earth must grow. It is right, and it is natural, and it is very beautiful to grow. I don't think it's beautiful to grow, said Clou-Clou. I want to stay just as I am forever. Come, said the grandmother. Let me show you about growing. She led the boy to where a large bird's nest lay partly hidden in the bushes. Look, she said, parting the bushes carefully. What do you see in there? An egg, said Clou-Clou. A beautiful, beautiful egg. Oh, grandmother, that is the most beautiful egg I have ever seen. I would like to keep it forever. May I take it home? No, said the grandmother. We must never touch eggs in the nest. We must always leave them just where they are. But you are right, Clou-Clou. It is a beautiful egg, and indeed it would be lovely to keep forever. But listen, little one, listen to the egg. Something is happening to it. Clou-Clou put his ear near the nest and listened. What is happening? He asked. It sounds as if it's breaking. There is something growing inside the egg, his grandmother told him. Soon the beautiful egg will crack open so that new life can come out. I don't want it to crack, said the boy. Just wait, little one, said his grandmother. Perhaps there is something just as beautiful growing inside the egg. Very soon the egg cracked and split in two, and out of it came a small, feeble baby bird. Within minutes, the baby bird learned how to stand on its little legs, and his body was covered with soft down. Now, what do you think? Asked the grandmother. Oh, grandmother, that is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. I would like to keep that baby bird forever. I thought you wanted to keep the egg forever, his grandmother reminded him. The egg was beautiful, said Clou-Clou, but the baby bird is beautiful too. I hope it will stay like that forever. I want to take it home with me. We must not do that, said the grandmother. We must never touch baby birds in the nest, or we might frighten away their parents. But you are right, Clou-Clou. The baby bird is very beautiful, but it will not stay like that forever. It will grow because it is right for all living things to grow. And when it grows, it will be just as beautiful as it is now, but it will be beautiful in a different way. I do not believe it, said Clou-Clou. I do not believe anything could be as beautiful as the baby bird. Let us wait, said the grandmother. Let us wait and watch it grow.
So Clou-Clou watched week by week as the little bird grew. He watched how its wings grew and how it learned to stand on the edge of the nest and try out its wings. And then the day came when the bird was fully grown and was ready to leave the nest and fly. As the bird soared into the air, the boy was filled with amazement. "Oh, grandmother," he said, "that is the most beautiful thing in the whole world. The bird is so strong and so graceful. There will never be anything as beautiful as that." "I thought you wanted to keep the beautiful egg forever," his grandmother reminded him, "or even the baby bird." "They're all beautiful," said Clou-Clou. "Exactly," said his grandmother. "That's what growing is, Clou-Clou. Growing is being beautiful in different ways at different times." "And is it like that with people?" asked Clou-Clou. "Yes, it is, Clou-Clou. It is just like that with people," said his grandmother. "Even when they are very old, grandmother?" "Of course," said his grandmother, smiling gently. "If I had not grown to be so old, I would not have been able to tell you about growing, would I? Or about how beautiful it is to grow." "Oh, grandmother," said Clou-Clou, "you are very wise. I like the way you have grown." "And you will grow like that too, little one," said the grandmother, as together they watched the beautiful bird fly off into the sky.
I think eggs are beautiful. I like to collect eggs, and these are some of the different types I've gathered over the years. If you look here, these are ordinary hen's eggs. I suppose most of us have seen these before, but not all eggs are as large as hen eggs. If you look at these two little ones, these come from a catbird, kind of a really nice blue color. And these two, they're a little different size and a little different color. They come from a grackle. Now, if you look at these two larger speckled ones, this one is from a black vulture. And that's a fairly large bird, so the egg is larger than the catbird's eggs or the grackles. And this one is a really unusual shape and an unusual color. It comes from a bird called the murie. If you look at this enormous thing, what bird do you think that's from?
Ostrich?
That's right. An ostrich is a pretty big bird, so the egg's pretty big. Now, it's not only birds that lay eggs. If you look at these strange ones over here, this is from a black snake.
Snake?
That's right. Some snakes lay eggs. So do crocodiles and the platypus. So you can see there are lots and lots of different types of eggs in the world.
I think it's exciting the way a whole new life can grow inside an egg. And then when the new life is ready, the egg is broken.
This is the egg of the tiny hummingbird. Watch how it cracks open so the new hummingbird can come from it. And this bigger egg is the ostrich egg. The baby bird inside it is much bigger, but it hatches in much the same way. And this is a snake egg. Some snakes hatch their eggs right inside their bodies. But others lay the eggs on the ground like this. And when the little snake is hatched, it quickly wriggles away from the broken eggs.
These little guys weren't hatched from an egg. They were born alive. Of course, they were much smaller then than they are now, but they've been growing ever since. Most mammals are sort of small and weak when they're born, but some grow strong very quickly.
This little foal is 5 days old, and it's running around easily. In fact, it was up on its feet before it was an hour old. Kittens at 5 days old are more helpless. They can't even open their eyes for about 2 weeks after they're born. But then they become very active and grow up fairly quickly. Humans need to be cared for many years before they can really look after themselves.
Am I gonna grow like that?
You certainly are. You're not going to stay like this forever, you know. You've been growing all your life, and you'll keep right on growing. Why don't we take a minute and see how a person grows?
First comes the baby, quite helpless and weak, not walking, not talking, just small. Right away, growth begins and changes take place. Baby moves, learns to roll and to crawl. Then comes the toddler, learning so much, how to walk and to talk and to play, becoming a child and learning a lot and growing a bit every day. Next, adolescence. More growth and more change, more things to do and to know, more like an adult and less like a child. We continue to change and to grow. More growth and more change, and there's an adult, a grown-up, a woman or man. But that's not the end, for changing goes on throughout every person's lifespan.
And that's how you'll grow. Now, maybe you won't look quite like that, but that's generally the changes that people go through as they grow. And if you watch your friends, even your furry friends, over a period of time, you'll see how they grow.
This is Ohio Educational Broadcasting.
To sort these out somehow, Linda. These stamps are from different countries, and there's a picture of a living thing on each one.
Boy, there's a lot of countries in the world. A lot of different living things, too.
Look, here's one from Libya. It's got a picture of a fish on it.
Wonder what kind of fish that is.
I don't know.
Oh, look at this. This is from Austria. It has some nice white flowers on it.
Kind of a bouquet. How about this one from Uganda? It's a bird.
Yeah, it looks like maybe a parrot. This is strange. Tom, have you ever heard of a place called Varietyville? Or a person called Alice in Varietyville?
It all started one day when Alice was in the garden reading a book about living things. The sun was shining, and it was a warm day. As the sun shone on the pages of the book, the words seemed to run together and not make very much sense.
Roses are living things. Roses. Noses. Roses. Noses.
Yeah, who's talking about noses? That's where I come in.
Oh my goodness, what is that?
Well, what do you think it is? A nose, of course. Haven't you ever seen a nose before?
Of course I have, but all the noses I've seen have been on people's faces.
On people's faces? Is that all you know? Why, there are lots of living things in the world besides people. Lots of living things. Just look. Animals and plants and insects and fish and birds and reptiles and amongst all those living things, you'll find a great variety of noses. Here's an unusual nose. It belongs to the very shy little dick-dick. See how it twitches to sniff out danger? And here's a nose that's much bigger, but sort of the same shape as the dick-dick nose. This nose belongs to the big elephant. The elephant is very heavy and doesn't move around easily, so it uses its nose for lots of things. That remarkable nose can even pick up something as tiny as a peanut and blow the dust off it at the same time. And this crocodile's nose can close to keep water out. The crocodile lives in the water, but it breathes air. So when it goes under the water, it has to be able to close its nose to keep the water out. And the hippopotamus can do the same thing. Even fish, who live under the water all the time, have noses. They don't breathe through their noses. They breathe through gills at the sides of their bodies. But they still have noses right up there on the front of their faces.
Those are all very nice noses, and I thank you for showing them to me, but I think I'll stick to the one I've got. I've grown rather attached to it, you see.
But Alice was wasting her breath talking to the nose because it had already vanished. She was very confused.
Oh, this is all so strange. Noses on rose bushes? What's this hanging on the bush?
Ouch!
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think you
No,
were...
that's the trouble with people. They never think.
I said I was sorry.
So you should be. Nobody takes tails seriously. And yet tails are really very important.
I suppose they're good for keeping flies off bodies.
That's all anybody seems to know about tails. But tails are useful in so many ways. And there are so many different types of tails. Just take a look at this, please, and then see how you feel.
Here's a tail that isn't used for keeping flies off. It's used for support. The kangaroo has very heavy back legs and very small front paws. It uses its big tail as a support when it stands still and when it moves. And this beaver's tail is used as a tool. The beaver is a dam builder, and it uses that flat spade-like tail to flatten out mud as it builds the dam. And fish, which live underwater all the time, use their tails as rudders so they can steer their bodies through the water. Some creatures use their tails for display. How about this for a tail? The male peacock has a brightly colored tail which it displays to attract a mate. Some animals have no tails at all. These apes don't need tails. They have hands that they can use for support, or for keeping the insects away, and to help them move from place to place. So they don't need tails. Of course, there are animals which use their tails to keep flies off, like the tall giraffe.
Alice was very confused by this most unusual garden.
Things are really very strange today. I have the feeling I'm being watched.
And suddenly she heard another extraordinary voice.
You are being watched. I have my eye on you.
Who? Oh, my goodness. What a lot of eyes.
And why should that surprise you?
Well, I mean, eyes don't usually lie around in gardens, and there are usually only 2 of them together.
That shows you haven't looked at very many eyes. There's a great variety of living things in the world, and there are lots of different types of eyes. Let me show you.
Look at these fish eyes. Fish don't blink. They don't have to. Blinking is something which keeps the eye damp. Fish live in the water, so their eyes are kept damp all the time. Now look at the birds. Birds fly, so they have to have very light bodies. Birds have no eye muscles in their heads. That way, their heads can be light enough for flying. The bird has to move its whole head around to see things. It can't just move the eye. The ostrich has a special extra lid inside the eye. Because the bird lives in dusty places, it needs to have this extra lid moving across the eye to keep it damp. Now look at these eyes. The giraffe is a very tall animal. And the giraffe's eyes are on each side of its head. They're not in front of the head, the way humans' eyes are.
This is all too strange for me. I think I'll read my book again.
But just as Alice stretched out to read her book...
What's this? Things are getting stranger by the minute.
What's so strange about a foot?
Oh, nothing. A foot is a perfectly normal thing. I just didn't expect to find one in the middle of my book.
Why not? Feet can go in all sorts of places. There's a great variety of living things in the world, and a lot of different types of feet. Just watch these, if you please.
This little bird, which spends a lot of time in trees, has 4 toes so it can grip the branches easily. This ground bird, which doesn't go in trees much, has only 3 toes. It doesn't need that 4th gripping toe. And this big bird has talons, strong claw-like feet which it uses to tear apart the food it likes to eat. Now this big bird, the ostrich, has only 2 toes. That's because the ostrich doesn't move much like a bird at all. It runs a lot, and 2 toes are much easier for running than 3 or 4. Even penguins have different types of feet. The little rockhopper penguins have webbed feet. They use their feet a lot when they swim. But these bigger emperor penguins and the king penguins don't actually paddle their feet as they swim. They use their feet more like a rudder, so they don't have webbed feet. The elephant has a special kind of foot. The elephant foot gets smaller as the elephant lifts it up. And that makes it a lot easier for the big animal to pull its foot out of mud and soft soil.
My goodness, I hope things are going to return to normal now.
It'd be nice to have my ordinary old garden back with its ordinary old trees and flowers.
What do you mean, ordinary trees indeed?
Oh, I didn't mean anything.
I know just what you mean. You mean you think all the plants in the world are just like the ones in your garden. I've got news for you. Plants are living things too, you know, and plants come in a great variety of different types. Just look at this, and then perhaps you won't talk about ordinary plants ever again.
There are flowers and vegetables and trees and mosses and fungi and plants that grow in the water.
What a variety of living things I've seen today. I think I'll call this place Varietyville. Oh, it's full of all sorts of things. Noses and roses. Roses.
And that was the end of Alice's adventures in Varietyville.
That's strange.
What's that, Linda? What was that place you asked me about?
I thought that had a different name on it. Oh, well. Hey, look at this. It's an elephant from India.
Look at those tusks. What about these pheasants from the Republic of China?
Ooh, look at those nice feathers.
It's pretty neat.
Timothy, where are you? Timothy, come on. We know you're here somewhere.
Hi, Robbie. Hi, Gary. What are you two guys looking for?
Oh, hi, Tom. We're looking for Timothy. Is it okay if we look on your patio? I'll bet he's around here somewhere.
Who's Timothy?
Our turtle. He moves very slowly, and he sure can't get lost easily.
Okay, Gary. Let's see if we can find him. I'll help you. He probably hasn't gone too far.
Trouble is, he's hard to see. He's almost the same color as the pots and things around here.
Aha. Here he is. Come on, Timothy.
How'd you find him? I already looked there.
Well, it's pretty hard to see, Robbie. It's kind of a protection, being the same color as his surroundings.
That's a good way to make sure you're left alone.
Well, it's also a good way to make sure you survive. Some living things fit in with their surroundings so well that other living things don't even see them.
That's like that Pete and Barney story. Remember? The one where they went to that island.
Oh, yeah. Maybe you've heard tell of some of the adventures of those wild and wicked pirates of old, Barney and Pete. It seems that once, when these two daring adventurers had been out at sea for quite a long time, they wanted to put into shore for a rest. They found what looked like a nice, quiet island, and as their boat came into shore, Pete said, "There's a nice, strong rock I can jump onto, so I can pull the boat ashore." "I wouldn't do that if I were you," said Barney, who was watching him from the deck. "Things aren't always what they look like, you know." But it was too late. Pete had already jumped out of the boat, and just as soon as he got one foot on the nice, strong rock, it began to move. "Hey, help!" shouted Pete. "Earthquake!" "That wasn't an earthquake," said Barney. "It was a turtle." A turtle?" spluttered Pete as he struggled to the shore. "But it looked like a rock." "True," said Barney as the boat bumped gently onto the sand. "Some living things fit in with their surroundings so well that they don't look like what they really are." "Oh," said Pete, who wasn't really listening. "Well, come on, let's look for some food and water. Here's a nice strong vine we can use to tie up the boat." "I wouldn't do that if I were you," said Barney as he tied up the boat with its own rope. "Things aren't always what they look like, you know." But it was too late. Pete had already taken hold of the strong vine, and as he tugged at it firmly, it swung down around his neck. "Hey, help!" said Pete. "I'm being hanged." "That's not a hangman's noose," said Barney. "That's a snake." A snake?" yelled Pete as the reptile uncoiled and slithered away. "But it looked like a vine." "True," said Barney. "That's how it's protected, by looking like its surroundings." "Well," said Pete, "I'm certainly going to be more careful from now on. I'm going to look around me very carefully." "There's a pond over there," said Barney. "Why don't you see if it has some fresh water in it?" Pete ran to the pond, and as he ran, he sang a song to himself to remind him about how living things fit in with their surroundings. "Look carefully around you. Living things are everywhere. They fit in with their surroundings. You hardly know they're there." When he got to the pond, Pete looked into it carefully. All he could see was mud and pebbles on the bottom and clear water above them. "It looks fresh," he said to Barney, who was standing behind him. "I'll taste it." He bent down towards the water. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," said Barney. But it was too late. Pete already had his face close to the water. Just as he was about to taste it, something jumped up right under his nose. "Help!" he yelled. "Boiling mud!" "That wasn't boiling mud," said Barney. "It was a frog." "A frog?" gasped Pete, wiping the mud from his face. "Where did that come from?" "The bottom of the pond," Barney told him as he scooped up some fresh water in his hat. "You didn't see it because it's nearly the same color as the bottom of the pond." "I guess I still didn't look carefully enough, did I?" said Pete. "I'm going to be very extra specially careful from now on." "There are some coconuts over there," said Barney. "Why don't you get some for our lunch?" Pete ran towards the coconut palm, but as he got close, he noticed a small animal hurrying in the same direction. "Well," said Pete, "I'll just move this little fellow out of the way so I don't step on him." But as Pete bent down, the little animal suddenly became a mass of scary-looking spikes. "Hey, help!" yelled Pete. "A walking cactus." "That's not a cactus," said Barney. "That's a porcupine. Living things fit in with their surroundings in different ways. Some are protected by color, and some have special body protection, like the porcupine and its quills." Pete left the porcupine alone. "Now I understand," he said. "Living things fit in with their surroundings to help them survive." "Hey, Barney," he said as they sat down together to eat their lunch, "we'd better be very careful on this island. All the living things here fit in so well. We'd better remember that we're just visitors here and leave all the living things alone, so other people will be able to enjoy the island when they come to visit." Pete found out about things fitting in the hard way, and he only found out about some of the ways living things fit in with their surroundings. For instance, he saw how color can help, just the way it helped your turtle.
There are lots of animals that fit into their surroundings because of their color.
The butterfly with colored wings. The toad that's colored brown. The polar bear that's very white and hard to see in snow. And the Arctic fox is like that too. It's white and hard to see. Color isn't the only way living things fit in with their surroundings. Look at your turtle again. You see what a nice thick shell he has? That's called a carapace. Now, the turtle doesn't move very fast, but he has a carapace for protection. Animals have different types of bodies that suit the places where they live and the ways they live. The turtle has a carapace. The porcupine has quills. The skunk has a smell that's not very nice, so its enemies all stay away. The fox has ears which are pointed and sharp, so it hears very well in the night. The giraffe has a neck that goes on and on. It can reach the tops of some trees. The camel has a hump to store water in as it travels the desert each day. The seal has a body that's so sleek and lean, it slips through the water with ease. The flamingo has legs that are long. It can wade. The pelican has a pouch to store fish. The duck has feathers that are oiled through and through, so it's waterproofed all the time. Under his nice, hard, protective shell, Timothy has 4 stumpy legs. They don't move very fast, but they take him from place to place at his own good pace. Lots of animals have 4 legs.
Yeah, like dogs, cats, horses, cows, bears, lions, tigers.
Right. And some animals have 2 legs.
Sure, like birds, people.
Right again. And some animals have no legs at all, but they're still able to move. Living things have many different ways of moving. Most creatures that live in the water can swim. Like the stingray, the shark, and other fish. They have fins. They have tails that move them along. They're suited to water that way. Some birds, like the ducks, which look funny on land, use their webbed feet to swim very well. And then there are creatures which live on the land and have neither 2 legs nor 4. And yet they can move and cover the ground. Without legs, they can still move quite fast. And then there are creatures which do have legs, but don't use them all of the time. Instead, they have wings to get them around. And they spend lots of time in the air, like the birds, and the butterflies, and other insects too. Their wings and their tails help them move. And then there are those which jump as they move, like the toads and all of the frogs, and the big kangaroo, which jumps really fast, and the deer, which leaps high when it has to.
A turtle would look funny if it had to jump along, wouldn't it?
How about a flying turtle? That'd be pretty weird, wouldn't it? But I suppose turtles don't have to fly. They don't live in trees.
But they do live near the roots of trees or in grasses and leaves in the forest.
Oh, trees and grasses are living things too. All plants are living things. And just like animals, plants are suited to their surroundings. Mostly, I suppose, we think about plants living above the ground. But that's not the only kind of plants there are. Mostly, we think of plants as having flowers and shoots above the ground and roots in the soil. But plants like these mosses and lichens grow right on the rock and have very tiny hair-like roots. And then there are plants with very big roots that can store a lot of water. And there are plants which grow in the branches of other plants, like this Spanish moss hanging from the branches of a tree. And what about plants that grow in hot or desert places? Their leaves look really different, and they have thick stems to absorb and store water. Often they're covered with spikes. And there are plants which grow around and in the water. Some of them have flowers and leaves which float on the top of the water. So plants, too, are suited to just where they live. They fit in, like all living things. Now what are you two guys up to? Or should I say down to?
Timothy's gone again. I put him on the ground for a minute, and he disappeared again.
Well, why don't we check where we found him in the first place? You seem to like it over here.
If you ask me, I think Timothy fits in with all the surroundings just too well. I can't see him anywhere.
Hey, look, there he goes down the back path. Come on, maybe if we hurry, we might just catch up with him. Linda? Hey, Linda, can you come in here a minute? I need some help.
Okay, what can I do for you? Tom, you've been working on this thing for hours, and I still don't know what it is. Won't you please?
Can you hold this piece right here?
This piece?
Yeah, hold it really still. Okay, the success of this thing depends on every piece being exactly right, okay?
Okay, got it?
Yeah, I think so.
Aren't you going to tell me what this thing is?
It's a book taker offer.
A what?
A book taker offer. See, I sit over here on the couch, and I pull these two strings, and the book taker offer takes that book off the shelf and brings it over to me.
Uh-huh. Do you really think this thing's going to work?
Well, it should if I put it together the right way. Of course, it is one of those things where every part depends on another part, you know? So if one part goes wrong, the whole thing's no good. Well, here, look. See, when I pull the strings, first of all, this light comes on, so I have light to read by. And at the same time, this helicopter starts up, okay? Now, this little propeller goes around in the back, and that winds up this string, which pulls this little doll off the railroad track. Now, when the doll falls off the railroad track, that frees that train car to roll down the track into that balloon. Now, there's a pin on the front of the railroad car, which pops the balloon, which makes that book fall down, which pulls this string, which sets off this alarm clock, which winds up and pulls this string, which moves this crane around into position, which lowers the book off the shelf, down onto this cart, which brings it over to me.
Uh-huh.
Well, why don't we try it? Ready for this? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. Oh, no, the alarm clock didn't go off. Doggone it.
Well, I'll believe it worked when I see it. And if you don't need me anymore, I think I'll get back to the plants. They're living things, and they need food and water in order to stay alive. It's up to me to be sure they get it. Living things depend on other living things, just as the parts of Tom's gadget depend on each other. Living things show us examples of dependency.
Dependency. One thing needs another. Things can help each other. One thing needs another for dependency. This depends on that. That depends on this. Things can help each other. That's dependency. Dependency.
Here are some plants with beautiful flowers. The plants need the bees to carry the pollen to other flowers, to help the plants to produce new seeds. The bee needs the plant, and the plant needs the bee. The bee needs the nectar from the flower to make honey. So the plant and the bee have dependency. All around we can see examples of dependency. Even in a stream where we can see small insects swimming and floating along. The insects provide food for bigger water creatures, and they provide food for fish. And the fish, in turn, provide food for the hungry raccoon. The raccoon depends on fish for part of its food supply. But perhaps there is something else which depends on the raccoon. The bobcat is a meat eater, and so it depends on animals like the raccoon for its food. And so it goes on, all around us, examples of how living things depend on one another for their existence. Here is a bird that depends on the tree. The bird needs the tree for a place for its nest. The bird needs the tree for finding some food. The bird needs the tree for somewhere to perch. As shelter from the rain, as shelter from the sun. With the bird and the tree, there's dependency. Even in the peaceful setting of a forest, we can find examples of dependency. These reindeer depend on the forest for food and shelter. But on the edges of the forest waits another animal that depends on the reindeer for food. The wolf watches and waits. The reindeer try to run away, but the wolf is swift and hungry and soon makes a catch. The wolf depends on the reindeer, and the reindeer depends on the forest.
Dependency. One thing needs another. Things can help each other. One thing needs another for dependency. This depends on that. That depends on this. Things can help each other. That's dependency. Dependency.
Think of all the animals that depend on plants. Think of all the animals whose food comes from plants. Think of all the animals that depend for their food on other kinds of animals to provide them with meals.
Do you think these animals eat plants or meat?
Dependency. One thing needs another. Things can help each other. One thing needs another for dependency. This depends on that. That depends on this. Things can help each other. That's dependency. Dependency.
Humans need living things a lot. We get meat from animals, and we need plants to give us fruits and vegetables. And we also use plants to make other foods like bread. And humans need plants for clothes, like my shirt. It's made of cotton, which comes from the cotton plant. Humans depend on living things, but have you ever thought about how much living things depend on you?
Perhaps you have a pet. Well, that pet depends on you for almost everything. You have to feed your pet, make sure it has something to drink, keep the pet clean, and keep the pet's cage or tank clean. Some pets need straw so they can make a nest, and some pets need to be exercised.
And even if you don't have pets of your own, maybe you like to put out seed and crumbs for the wild birds. Did you know that if you put out food for the birds at the beginning of winter, they will depend on you to feed them for the rest of the winter? And if you don't keep feeding them, some of them may die. So, you can be very important to living things. Perhaps you're a plant lover like me. If you do keep plants in your classroom or in your home, they will depend on you completely to look after them.
It's working! Look, Linda, it's working!
So I see.
See how easy that was? There's the book you wanted, and you didn't even have to move a muscle to get it.
The book I wanted? I didn't want a book.
Well, you've been talking about the way living things depend on each other, and that book's all about that. It tells how one very large animal depends on one very small one to help it live.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
The rhinoceros is a biggish beast, but its eyes are weak and small. So oftentimes there may be things it cannot see at all. If it is busy eating and its eyes are on the ground, it may not see when danger is at hand, and its smallish eyes don't see too well through trees or flying sand. But the little tick bird's always there, riding on its hide, and the bird has eyes that see quite well the dangers far and wide. The tick bird gives its warning cry, so the rhino is alert and prepares to meet the dangers and protect itself from hurt. Now the tick bird gets its funny name from a thing it likes to do. It pulls ticks from the rhino's skin, and other insects too. The tick bird gets a lot of food as it takes its rhino ride, so the rhino depends on the tick bird's eyes, and the bird depends on the rhino's hide.
I think that's neat, the way two completely different animals can help each other. Does the book have other examples in it?
Yeah. Here, back in the back. Here, there's one. Now here's something about the ant and the aphid. Ants love sweet things, and the aphids make a sweet liquid, which the ants milk from them just as people milk cows. And in return, the ants look after the aphids very carefully. Sometimes they even carry them to better feeding grounds. Oh, and here's the hermit crab and the anemone. The hermit crab lives in shells abandoned by shellfish, and since it's always in danger of being attacked, it protects itself by putting a sea anemone on its shell. Other fish are afraid of the poisonous sea anemone, so they keep away from the crab. And in return, the sea anemone, which can't move too well on its own, is carried around by the crab. There. Now, wasn't that great? To be able to enjoy all those pictures and the story in the book without even having to get up out of your chair.
Well, maybe you've got something there, Tom. I think I'll put the book away.
Put the book back? Uh-oh.
Oh, what's the matter?
Well, I forgot to make the book take her off her work as a book put her backer. Guess my idea wasn't so smart after all.
Well, maybe we'll just have to depend on our own arms and legs to get things for us.
Dependency. One thing needs another. Things can help each other. One thing needs another for dependency. This depends on that. That depends on this. Things can help each other. That's dependency. Dependency.
Wow, there's lots of people in the world.
About 4 billion, I believe. That's quite a few people.
It's a wonder there's room for anything else on the earth.
I'm glad there is. Imagine if there were no plants or animals. Suppose there were only people. Seems to me that'd be awfully dull.
It'd be worse than dull. Without the other living things, our lives wouldn't be nearly so pleasant. I know of some people who honestly thought that humans were the only important living things.
The people in the town of Sillyville had houses and gardens and all. And they all wore clothes, and they all ate food, and they each had a bat and a ball. And the people in the town of Sillyville said, human beings really are the best. Human beings, of course, are the greatest living things. So let's just get rid of all the rest. But the people in the town of Sillyville would be in for a big surprise indeed if they knew how much help from plants and animals the people of this planet really need. Take away the rubber that is sap from a tree, and those sneakers and that ball would disappear. And without the rubber tires on their favorite bicycles, the ride would be uncomfortable, I fear. Take away the wood from the timber forest tall, and she wouldn't have that baseball bat for hitting. Take away the furniture and see what they would do without a table or a simple chair for sitting. Take away the flowers and the bushes and the grass, and they wouldn't have a garden anywhere. Take away the cats and dogs, the hamsters and the fish, and they'd have no pets at all for which to care. Take away the honey and the apples and the milk, and the sugar and the cornmeal and the meat, and the spinach and potatoes, and the cookies and the cake, and they wouldn't have so very much to eat. Take away the wool that grows on the sheep, and the cotton that grows on plants, and the people would feel chilly and even rather silly without their sweaters, their shirts, or their pants. So the people in the town of Sillyville
would do well to remember all their days that living things are useful and helpful in the lives of all of us in different kinds of ways.
Probably those people weren't as silly as they seemed, or as thoughtless. Sometimes we're so used to seeing things done up in a package in the store that we never really stop to think about where the things in the package came from.
That's right. I remember when I was working as a cashier in a supermarket, a very unusual person came in one day. Good day. It looks as though you're buying quite a lot today.
Oh, well, there's so many marvelous things on the shelves. My, my, my. It's amazing what humans can do. Just look at all these wonderful things made entirely by humans.
Well, actually, these things aren't entirely made by humans, you know.
No. Oh, come now. You can't say that there's anything in this card, in these packages, that wasn't made by a human.
Well, they may have been processed by people and
Yes.
put into packages by people.
Yes.
But I'll bet everything there originally comes from a plant or an animal.
Oh. I don't believe it.
Tell you what, you pass those things along to me one at a time, and I'll push these buttons on the cash register. See, some of the buttons say A for animal or P for plant.
Oh, my.
And if we come across anything in the cart that does not come from an animal or a plant, I'll let you have it. Free. How's that?
Great! Well, this is certainly going to be a cheap shopping trip for me, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't be too sure. Perhaps you'd like to join in, too, and help me decide which of these things come from plants and which come from animals. I hope he starts with some easy things.
Are you ready?
Yes?
Well, here we go.
Apples. It's a plant. Apples grow on trees. A tree is a plant.
Okay, you got the first one. But how about that? Now, is that from a plant or an animal?
Butter. That would be from an animal.
Oh.
Butter is made from milk, and milk comes from a cow.
All right. Butter might come from a cow, but how about peanut butter? Does that come from a peanut cow?
No, peanut butter comes from a plant, from the peanut plant.
How about eggs?
Let's see, eggs. Animal. Chickens lay eggs.
Oh, paper napkins.
Napkins. Plant. Paper comes from trees. Tree is a plant.
How about that one? Now that's got to be man-made. Look at that tin can, huh?
Yes, a tin can is made by man, but the food inside comes from an animal. Salmon is a fish.
How about that one?
Ketchup. That comes from a plant. Ketchup is made from tomatoes.
That one.
Honey. Honey comes from an animal. Bees make honey.
That one.
Cereal. Let's see, that would be a plant. This cereal is made from wheat.
All right. All right, this one's got to stump you. Now take a look at that. Now that's got to be man-made, a shoe polisher.
Well, let's see, the bottom is made from wood, and the top is made from wool. That would come from both a plant and an animal. The wool comes from sheep, and the wood comes from the tree.
Oh. It doesn't look like I'm going to save any money on this shopping trip.
Your experience in the supermarket just proves what I was saying. Sometimes we're so used to seeing things in packages that we don't even remember that they came from living things.
Like those raisins. And apart from food, there are lots of other ways in which we need plants and animals more than we realize. Did you ever think of these things? Animals can be used for transport, for taking people and goods from place to place.
and animals can be used for recreation and fun. And we use plants a lot too, for building, and for helping us enjoy our life.
It's amazing that one type of living thing, the tree, can be useful to us in so many ways. Let's just look at some of the ways in which we use trees.
When you see how much we do need trees and other living things, it makes you think about how we should take care of them, doesn't it?
We should all be careful with living things and not destroy them or waste them. Take a look at this picture I've been working on. This is a tree waster wasting wood by chopping down more than he needs.
And this is a tree saver, saving trees, replacing chopped trees with new seedlings.
Look after living things. Be thoughtful. Take care. Living things will last if we all do our share. This is a field waster, wasting fields by throwing down matches still burning.
This is a field saver, saving the fields by draining and resowing where they're bare. Look after living things. Be thoughtful. Take care. Living things will last if we all do our share.
This is a river spoiler, harming the fish by throwing her trash in the stream.
This is a river saver, taking care and helping keep life in the river alive.
Look after living things. Be thoughtful. Take care. Living things will last if we all do our share. There's a lot that you and I can do to help look after living things. If you find a bird's nest, don't touch it unless you're absolutely sure the bird is finished with it. If the nest has eggs in it, well, don't even go near it because the parents might be frightened away.
And when we go on walks through the woods, let's remember to be careful not to trample down the wildflowers or carve names and words in trees.
And sometimes in the woods or fields, you'll see a rabbit hole. Remember to leave the hole just as it is. If you fill it in, well, the rabbit might not be able to get back into its home.
There are many things we can do to help look after living things. Perhaps you have pets or plants. If we do have living things around the home, we should remember that we must keep on taking care of them, always, and not just when we feel like it.
You can probably think of other ways to help look after living things.
hi, Kathy. Did you come over to visit today?
No, I'm catching something.
Catching what? There's nothing here to catch.
Well, there's an animal around here someplace.
How do you know?
It rained last night, and there's lots of nice, fresh animal tracks out there in the soil.
Well, I guess they don't show up too well on this wooden floor.
They should. If the animal got its paws wet or muddy, there should be some marks somewhere around.
What kind of animal is it?
It's black.
How do you know?
Because I found black hairs along the path on the bushes and things.
You notice a lot of things, don't you? You'd have been a great help to the 3 princes of Serendip.
The who?
The 3 princes of Serendip. According to the story, they lived a very long time ago in ancient Persia.
Once upon a time, there were 3 princes. Their father, the king of Serendip, was a very wise man who sent his sons out into the world to travel, so that they could see things and learn things for themselves. Now it happened one day the 3 princes came to the kingdom of a great and powerful emperor whose name was Baramo. And just inside the gates of Baramo's kingdom, they met a camel driver who had lost his camel in his travels. He asked the 3 princes if by any chance they had seen his camel. Now the 3 princes had not seen the camel, but they had seen signs that the camel had left behind. So they asked the camel driver some questions about his camel. "Tell me, friend," said the first brother, "is the lost camel blind in one eye?" "Why, yes it is," said the camel driver. And the second brother asked, "And did your camel have a tooth missing?" "Yes, he did," said the camel driver. And the third brother asked, "And is the lost camel lame by any chance?" "Why, yes, he is," said the camel driver. "He drags one foot all the time." "That is my camel for sure. Tell me where you saw him." "He must be somewhere out along that road," said the 3 princes, pointing back along the way they had come. The camel driver hurried away to find his lost camel. The next day the camel driver came to the 3 princes again. He was very angry. "You 3 stole my camel," he shouted. "I looked everywhere along that road and I could not find him, and yet you were able to tell me exactly what he looked like. I am going to tell the emperor about this." And the camel driver ran to tell the emperor that the 3 princes of Serendip had stolen his camel. In no time, the 3 young men found themselves thrown into prison. The emperor came to see them. "Stealing a camel is a very bad thing to do," he said. "And for such a crime, you will be put to death." "But we did not steal the camel," said the first brother. "We did not even see the camel," said the second brother. "I do not believe you," said the Emperor Baramo. "If you did not even see the camel, how did you know what it looked like?" "Because we saw the signs the camel left along the road," said the third brother. "I do not understand what you mean," said the Emperor. "Tell me how you knew what the camel looked like." The first brother spoke. "I guess the lost camel must have been blind in one eye," he said, "because I noticed the grass along the sides of the road. On one side the grass was very good, and on the other side the grass was very poor. And yet only the poor grass had been eaten. So I guess the camel must have had a blind eye on the side near the good grass. He did not eat the good grass because he could not see it." "And I guessed," said the second brother, "that the camel was missing a tooth, because I noticed along the way many clumps of partly chewed grass. They were of such a size that they could only have come from the space of a missing tooth." "And I guessed," said the third brother, "that the camel was lame, because I noticed very clear tracks of 3 camel feet along the roadway, but drag marks in the dust where the 4th track went." The emperor was very impressed with what the 3 princes told him. "You have noticed a lot," he said. "It is true that living things leave signs that let us know where they have been and what they look like. And you have looked at all these signs very carefully. I do not believe that you stole the camel." At that moment, the camel driver came up to the emperor and the 3 princes. "My camel has been found," he said. "I am so sorry that I said you stole it. And I must thank you for noticing all the signs along the road that helped me find the camel. He was very near to where you said he'd be." The emperor let the three princes go and said to the camel driver, "Perhaps in future you should learn to look at things more closely. We can all learn a lot about living things if we look for the signs they leave behind."
That story says that all living things leave signs. I know animals leave tracks and things, but what about plants? Plants don't leave tracks, do they?
No, they don't leave tracks exactly, but they might leave signs.
Even if the plants aren't there anymore?
Even if it's been thousands or even millions of years since the plants were there, we can still find signs that have been left behind by the plants. See those bits of rock over there?
You mean these?
Yes. Do you want to bring them over here and we can take a look at them together? I collected these the other day in the shallow part of the stream. Here's a good piece. Look at this. What do you see?
It looks like a leaf of some sort.
It's a leaf impression. Actually, it's a cast of where there was once a live plant, a type of fern. Probably happened like this. A leaf fell down into some mud. This black part of the rock was once mud. And as soon as the leaf fell, some more mud slid down on top of it. And then gradually more and more mud came down. And then over thousands and thousands of years, the mud turned into rock. And the minerals from the mud took the place of the parts of the leaf and formed this cast in the rock. And look at these. These were once live plants also, much like the horsetail plants that we still have in many parts of the world. These are fossils that were made by minerals forming a coating over the leaf.
What about dinosaurs and things?
Yes, it seems that there were dinosaurs once and lots of other animals that are no longer on the earth. There are many ways in which living things leave evidence of their existence.
Animals leave tracks as they walk through snow or sand or soft soil. Sometimes an animal or the animal's body is trapped in the sand. More and more sand and rocks cover the body. The fossil or the imprint may be a long way down under the rock. Usually, the more rock there is on top, the older the fossil is. Scientists who find the different types of evidence that living things leave behind spend a lot of time and a lot of care cleaning the bones and impressions so they can find out more about the living things that they believe used to be on our earth. When they look at the bones or the imprints of bones, the scientists work out what they believe the animals probably looked like.
Sometimes they make models or pictures so we can see how animals millions of years ago might have looked. Fossil evidence suggests that over millions of years, the horse has developed from a tiny creature to the big animals we know today. Living things leave evidence of their existence, whether they passed our way just a little while ago, or whether it is millions of years since they were on our Earth. Let's put these rocks back where they were. Later on, I'm going to sort them into various types. Hey, what happened to my glass of milk?
Did it disappear?
Not quite, but almost half of the milk is gone.
A cat! That's what left the tracks. A cat. The paw prints, the black hairs, and now the milk. It must be a cat.
Maybe if we look around a bit, we can find some more tracks, and you can find out where it went.
Oh, I don't know. Now that I know what it is, tracking isn't so much fun. I think I'll go fossil hunting instead.
Okay. Bye-bye, Kathy.
Bye.
Doggone it. It's in here somewhere. I know it is because I brought the silly thing in this morning. Boy, this place is a mess. Here's all this stuff.
I don't even know what you're looking for, and I'm not at all sure what some of these things are. What's this?
Oh, that's matter.
Matter? Huh. That's a big help. What's in here? Phew. What's this?
Oh, that's matter too.
Matter again, huh? Huh. What's this? Ah, I know. You're going to tell me that this is matter too, right?
Well, yeah, only that's matter with matter inside it.
Huh. So, Mr. Helpful, Speaking of matter, what's the matter with you? We're supposed to be putting these things away so we can find whatever it is you're looking for, and all you can do is sit there and tell me things are matter.
Well, I mean, all this stuff is matter. I mean, most of the stuff around us is a state of matter. I mean, different states of matter, but everything's matter.
Of course. Most of the things on Earth come in one of three states: solids, liquids, gases, but I still don't see...
That's what you were showing me, right? Solids, liquids, and gases?
Now, I suppose you're going to tell me you have some neat way of knowing which is which and what the differences are.
Well, I was reading a story about exactly that before you so helpfully took my book away.
A book about states of matter?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tom.
It was called The Two Pirates and the Three States of Matter, see?
This could be interesting.
Well, maybe you've heard of the adventures of those wild and wicked pirates of old, Barney and Pete. It seems once these two daring adventurers were shipwrecked on a desert island. Barney thought it was a marvelous little island. It was nice and warm, there was no work to do, and there seemed to be plenty to eat. He lay down under a palm tree and helped himself to a bunch of bananas. Pete did not like the island at all. "Barney," he said, "I don't like this island. I want to go home." "Well, go home by all means if you want to," Barney told him. "All you need to get there are 3 of the states of matter." "We can go home with just 3 states of matter?" asked Pete happily. "Well, let's get started." "Well, start with something solid," said Barney, stretching out on the warm sand. "That's the first state of matter you need. Something solid we can sit on." Pete ran to look for something solid they could sit on. Barney busied himself picking some nice solid coconuts and dropping them into his big floppy hat. As he watched the coconuts dropping, he sang to himself. "A solid is something that keeps its own shape, no matter what you put it in. A solid is something that keeps its own shape, like popcorn or coconuts or tree trunks or tin." Meanwhile, Pete found the solid he wanted. He dragged it down to the beach. "I found the solid," he called to Barney. "What do I do now?" "Well, now for the second state of matter," Barney told him. "The liquid." "Liquid?" asked Pete. "What do I need a liquid for?" Then he looked to the ocean where there was lots of liquid. "Oh, water! I see. Of course, I need a liquid to float the solid on. We're going to float home." Pete dragged and pushed and pulled his solid towards the sea. Barney busied himself pouring lovely liquid coconut milk into his tin pirate's cup. As he poured the cool, refreshing liquid, he sang to himself. "Most liquids are wet, most liquids can pour, and liquids can splash all over the shore. And liquids have no shape, like tree trunks or tin. Liquids take on the shape of what you put them in. Liquids are terribly likely to slop. My favorite liquid is red soda pop." By now, Pete had his solid object floating on the liquid sea, so he called to Barney. "It's all ready to float now. Are you coming?" "And what about the third state of matter?" mumbled Barney without moving. "Oh, yes, you did say 3 states of matter, didn't you? Oh, but I'm so excited, I can't think what the third one is." "Gas," said Barney. "That's your third state of matter, gas." "Gas?" asked Pete. "But I don't have a gas tank." No, said Barney. "Not gasoline, not petroleum. I mean gas, like the gases that make up our air." "Oh, you mean we need air to get us home?" said Pete. But I don't know how to use air to get home. I can't even see it." "Take off your shirt," ordered Barney. "Hold it up above your head and run along the beach with it. Then you'll see." Pete never argued with Barney, so he quickly took off his shirt, held it high above his head, and ran down the beach. In no time, the flat shirt had filled with air and was billowing out like a sail. "Now I see," said Pete happily. "We need a sail that will fill with the gases of the air and blow us home." Pete found a tall stick to tie the sail to, and as he worked, he sang a gas song to himself. "Air is around us everywhere. Gases together make up air. Air is here, though it doesn't leave a trace. Gases expand to fill up a space." As soon as Pete had his shirt sail in place, the air blew into it, and the air, made up of gases, filled the shirt sail, and the boat began to move. Barney saw the boat move and jumped up quickly. Hey, Hey, wait for me, he called. I'm coming too. He had to run very fast, but even then the boat moved faster than he did, and he had to swim to catch up with it. Pete reached out and pulled his friend on board. Welcome aboard the SLG, he said happily. We're going home. The SLG, panted Barney. What'd you give it a name like that for? Because SLG is what's going to take us home, said Pete. SLG, solids, liquids, gases. Those are my 3 favorite states of matter.
Those two certainly made good use of 3 states of matter. Funny how we never think about things like that. I mean, I pick up a solid and I just accept it as being solid. But I guess what the pirate said in the story is true. A solid is something that keeps its own shape no matter what we put it in. Let's take a solid. This block will do. It's solid. In fact, it's made of wood and shaped like a rectangle. Let's see what happens when we put it into something else. Here's a container that is round at the bottom. Now, if the block were going to change shape, we would expect it to become round too. But look, it keeps its own shape. It's still shaped like a rectangle. Let's try a different container. Here's one shaped like a triangle. And our solid still keeps its own shape. And even if we put it into a container that is shaped like a large rectangle, the solid still stays the same. A solid keeps its own shape no matter what we put it in. And it doesn't matter what shape of the solid we use either. I'll take another block. This one is round at the end, and I can put it into any of these containers, and it will still keep its own shape. Or I can take this long, skinny one and put it in this large jug, and it still stays the same shape. It doesn't matter how many solids we put in together either. I can put all of these solids of different shapes into this large glass jug, and they all stay the same. Or I can put other solids in, and they all keep their own shape. So our friend, the pirate, was right in what he said about solids.
You know, he was right in what he said about liquids, too, because liquids can pour. And here's a liquid, orange juice. Watch. You see? I can pour it. There. Hey, now take a look at the shape that the orange juice has taken on in this bottle. It looks kind of like a triangle, doesn't it? The orange juice has taken on the shape of the bottle I poured it into. Let's see what happens when we put it in this round glass over here, okay? There. Now the orange juice is taken on a round shape, like the bottom of the glass. Let's try it once more, this time with the jar that's got a shape like a rectangle, okay? There. Now the orange juice is taken on a shape like a rectangle. Liquids are really different from solids, aren't they? I mean, the solids, they stayed the same shape in these different containers. That's because a solid has a shape of its own. But a liquid doesn't have a shape of its own, so it takes on the shape of the container that you pour it into. With a lot of different containers, you can see all the different kinds of shapes that a liquid can take on. Hey, let's take a look at another liquid. Here's one. Honey. Now take a look. See? It pours. It pours a lot more slowly than the orange juice did, doesn't it? There we go. And look, it's taken on a round shape. It's the same shape that the orange juice took on when it was in this round glass. Try one more liquid. Maple syrup, okay? Hey, once again, you can see it pours. And it's taken on the shape of the container, kind of a shape like a triangle. And maybe you noticed as I was pouring those 3 different liquids that they all poured a little differently. The honey and the maple syrup poured a lot more slowly than the orange juice, didn't they? And you know, that's because no 2 liquids pour exactly the same. What we could do is take these 3 liquids and have a kind of a pouring race between them to see which one gets to my breakfast first. I just happen to have a racetrack set up right over here. Take a look. Honey, orange juice, and maple syrup. You ready? On your mark, Get set. Go. There. Well, looks like the orange juice won pretty quick. The maple syrup is moving right along there.
This is a liquid, isn't it? Do you remember Barney saying that his favorite liquid was red soda pop? I wonder if he knew that in his favorite liquid was another state of matter, gas. All of those little bubbles in soda pop are made up of gas. If I pour the soda pop into this glass, you can see all of the bubbles. And if I pick it up to drink it, all of those bubbles come up and tickle my nose. Maybe that's what Barney liked about soda pop too, was the way it tickled his nose. You know, another thing that Barney knew was that there was air all around us, even though we can't see it. He used a shirt to catch some air in. I'll use this plastic bag. I'll catch some air. We can see that there is air in the bag. And when I place this block on top of it, we can see that it's the air in the bag that's holding the block up. Now, if I open the bag, the air is going to come out and pop. The block drops to the table because there isn't very much air in the bag anymore. Another thing that Barney knew was that gases were all around us and that they expanded to fill up a space. Let's watch and see how that works. Here's a dark brownish colored gas. Watch how it expands to fill all the space in the bottle. Look at it swirling up there, rising to fill the whole space.
Hey, this is it. This is what I was looking for the whole time. Gee, you used half of it up.
What were you looking for? What did I use up?
My soda pop, my red soda pop, you know?
You mean we're cleaning up this room just for a bottle of soda pop?
What do you mean, just a bottle of soda pop?
Oh, wow.
Ah, what better reason is there to clean up a room, hey?